Signs of the Southland, Sunday, May 8th, 8 p.m. Mr. Grant, I have some questions to ask you about this Miami Grand Prix thing that was apparently on my TV and that I imbibed 2 hours of earlier today.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you watched it. Why are you asking me the questions, sir?
I don't know. You seem like an F1 guy.
I'm an F1 guy in the sense of good old Drive to Survive made me a vaguely F1 kind of guy. So it's fun. It was nice that it wasn't during church for once. As much as I think the sport is cool, 10 or 11 a.m. every Sunday is not what gets the eyeballs in the Grant house.
Did you see whoever the Sky commentator was doing the grid walk mistake? I think it was Paulo Branchero for Patrick Mahomes.
No, so I was at Home Depot because I'm currently moving apartments and
Okay.
apartment-y stuff. So I tuned in lap 5, but I loved at the end hearing them talk about Dan Marino, famous American football Miami Dolphins player? Question mark. They definitely could not figure out the position, but they stuck to the script, I guess.
True. As a matter of fact, we are not sticking to our usual two-person script today. We have a new guest, Mr. Jack Purdy. Mr. Purdy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, my name is Jack. I'm a tech alumni as of a little over 24 hours ago, so still understanding what life post-tech is like. I did not I watched the last 5 laps of that race because I realized we were going to talk about that, so I made sure to know that Verstappen won, and that's all I know.
There you go.
He led for most of it. That's about all I got.
I knew he qualified high. I did not watch Drive to Survive. My dad and my brother have watched it, and they watch all the races, so I just kind of glean from them what they tell me. One day I'll find a way in, but I had the church problem like Jake had for a long time, but I also stopped working at my church as of today, so I have my Sunday mornings back to watch F1.
Well, you have your Sunday mornings and Sunday afternoons back, not only to watch F1, but also to partake in some soccer. And like me, you were at yesterday's Atlanta United game, I hear.
I was. And very glad. I walked in, I got to my seat, and Ronaldo Cisneros scores a goal. And I'm like, well, that worked out quite nicely.
And then 15 minutes in, not so great news for the team and the United States men's national team, as Miles Robinson has a possible serious Achilles injury. But yeah, that's not great.
I hear my boys in red and blue didn't really show up.
Jordan Shaqiri was there. He did things.
Shaqiri was there. He didn't do that much, but he did a couple things-ish. The Fire just sucked in general yesterday. They got lucky on one goal where Shuttleworth just was completely out of position on a corner or just a cross. And then beyond that, anytime we wanted to get behind, we got behind. So even with Miles out.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. Miles Robinson, noted ACC alumnus from Syracuse, by the way.
Yes.
Have to mention that. But notable connection between both of you. Both of you were on Club Swim. And this is where I make a very bad segue into talking about our club sports for the week. Wait.
Hold up. Are we not going to introduce Jack? Are we just going to say he's here now?
We did introduce Jack. He's here now.
I'll give you more.
I was going to say,
I'll give you more.
He's just some guy. Is he joining from the Rumble seat? Like, he's got to give the people something to work with.
Please. Go for it.
I dove in. Let's see. So I was at Tech for 5 years. I'm a Scheller grad.
Boo,
I was. I know. I know it's not the hardest thing there. And then
they're all hard degrees.
They are. Yes, they are. I was on the technique staff as the sports editor or or assistant in some form or fashion for 2 years. I relaunched our podcast called Tech Lively, where I got people anywhere from just friends of mine to editors to, in fact, the president of the institute himself, Angel Cabrera, which was super cool. And then I did do Club Swim for about 4 months and then realized that was not totally for me, but I already said I would help with the national meet. So I just kind of practiced on my own a little bit and then swam my last race in 2018. and then retired from swimming then.
To be fair, overlap. The overlap counts.
There was an overlap. I learned who Jake was. I saw him at the Student Center many time afterwards, and it was good to see his face there.
Jack, I have been to MoMA Goldberg's in Auburn now 3 times, and I would never
yes,
if not for that first time I was on the executive board way back in the day, and I was driving a van.
It was not that long ago. That long ago.
We have to go to this place.
We had to go. It's the greatest. Yeah, if you go to Mama Goldberg's, they have a few locations in Bama. The only one in Georgia is in Columbus. They used to have one here, but it was in a really awful location that no one could get to, and was out of the way, not convenient. So it died very quickly. But we made our frequent occurrences. But no, get you a Mama's Love from Mama Goldberg's on Magnolia Lane, or not Magnolia Lane. That's the Masters one. Magnolia, whatever the road is in Auburn. You will love it.
Yeah, Goldberg's. There's another in LaGrange. So keep that.
I forgot about that one.
Let's see. How far is this from Atlanta? Oh, you might as well go to Auburn for that one.
Yeah, because you get the hour back on the way there. You spend some time, and then it's like whatever. You just drive.
It's a straight shot on 85 to the one in LaGrange.
It is. Yeah.
This is all off topic. I don't think Jack said. Jack is now on the from the Rumble Seat staff. So welcome Jack. He'll be doing a couple pieces for us and filling, adding to our repertoire here and there. Let's talk about club sports. Both of your areas of expertise. I feel like, considering your shared background of 4 overlapped months in club swim. Jake, why don't you start us off talking about men's lax, and then Jack, you can add some color here and there.
Yeah, so men's lacrosse they were number 7 when we made this edition of our shot sheet a couple weeks ago. They are number 8. They're the 8th seed in the MCLA tournament. They received an at-large bid despite falling to South Carolina in their last time out in the SCLC championship. Really not a ton else to say other than that they're going to face number 9 Concordia Irvine tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Winner will face number 1 VP ISU, or VPSU, as we like to say on this fine podcast, on Tuesday. So really just they're in Round Rock. They're going to play until they're out. And Irvine's been a top team for a while too. We kind of tend to run across them in terms of the rankings a lot, even if since they're in California, we don't play them all that much.
Notable about Concordia Irvine before I let you go, Jack. Concordia University Irvine Athletics. It's CUIEagles.com because they are the Concordia University Irvine Eagles. Didn't know that. Didn't know this school existed until 30 seconds ago. So there you go.
Neither did I. I guess the only real color I can add is that I see them I live right next to the sack field, so I see them practice, and they were definitely practicing in very hot weather. So I feel like they'll be used to the heat by the time they get to Round Rock.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I had no idea who Concordia is. They actually play at 2:30 at least Eastern time.
Oh, their central time on the sheet.
1:30 God's time. 1:30 God's time. I will say Concordia Irvine is D2 officially, but obviously this is club, so it doesn't matter. If I remember correctly, VT led the MCLA or the SELC Atlantic region, but I'm going to have to go check that. Or the MCLA Atlantic region. Let's make sure that my stuff is correct. While Jake vamps for a second.
Yeah, so I actually just was curious and looked this up because there's a Concordia University in my hometown of River Forest, Illinois.
Of course there is.
They're actually in the same system. There are 7 Concordia universities all in the same system. Concordia, Ann Arbor, Texas, Chicago, Irvine, St. Paul, Nebraska, and Wisconsin.
I guess it's a Lutheran university system, not a state university system. So that kind of tracks.
Concordia University in Chicago, River Forest is D3 baseball like royalty. So the more you know.
TIL. VT was in the Atlantic Lacrosse Conference South. They went 4-0 in their division. They were 14-1 overall. Concordia Irvine, if I can pull them up on the sheet as I keep scrolling and keep scrolling and keep scrolling, I should use Control F. Concordia. Irvine was the top seed in the Southwestern Lacrosse Conference in their first division. They were 7-0 in division, 13-2 overall. And then our lovely Georgia Tech was 4-0 in their division, top of the SELC North, 13-3 overall. So that is going to be a heater of game. That's a Monday 2:30 tip-off, first pitch, kickoff, face-off.
I think they faced off.
Round
Yeah,
Rock.
yeah.
Round Rock in Austin. But over on the Northeastern Atlantic Seaboard, we have ACC Baseball's championship tournament starting up on, what is that, later this week on the 11th? What is that, the Tuesday, Wednesday? I should know these dates.
That's a Wednesday.
That is a Wednesday. I totally came prepared. Georgia Tech is in the play-in round as the 7 seed versus the 10 NC State. That is a 3:30 first pitch on ACC Network on Wednesday, the 11th. Jack, I'm going to hand it to you first. What do you make of this matchup? What have you made of Tech season so far?
The games I've been to, I mean, they've been usually. I went to the Dartmouth series and a couple other games here and there. This kind of speaks just for softball. We're better than this last year. That much I know. I watched this kill at the beginning of the last year's season, and then I checked back 3 weeks later, and we hadn't won a game since. I was like, "What the hell happened?" Thankfully, it's been better this year. I loved watching Jen Soleo play so much at shortstop. I wish I could be her out there in slow pitch softball. Like, it's incredible. I didn't see any North Carolina State's games. I don't dive into softball as much as others, but I have seen our offense do well. I do know we have the talent to, at least it's softball. I mean, if you can hit solidly, you're gonna poke some home runs, just whether you like it or not. So I mean, it's just a matter of getting hot. Except that we're not. We lost all of our games to Clemson in their last. Actually, baseball and softball did both of those things. Now that I think about it,
They did. We'll get there.
Yeah. So
I was moving the last 2 weekends. Otherwise, I definitely would have gone to one of those series up in Clemson.
Yeah. So I would. I mean, for tournament play, you just got to get hot. I mean, that's just how playoffs work. So you just kind of hope someone throws a perfect game or a no hitter here, and Zeitler or whoever else can get solid contact that'll at least put something down on the scoreboard.
Yeah, so it's funny that you should say that, because last year they were also in the play-in game. Tech kind of got screwed by the ACC scheduling last year in the COVID year, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I believe Blake Nelman came out and threw a no-no against Syracuse in the opening round. Of course,
Yep.
Tech later then fell to Clemson, a school we still haven't beat yet.
School that's only had a softball program for 3 years, by the way.
Yeah, love
I forgot that. Yeah,
that. But in terms of, NC State, the prognosis, and Duke, who would be the next round matchup, Tech did sweep NC State this year. It was a 3-0, 9-1, 5-1 slate of games. The 9-1 game being in 6 innings, so a run rule, but a much nicer turnaround than last year. NC State's down a little bit, but has a familiar face in the circle. So, the more they come around, the better, I guess. But in terms of, I guess, year over year transition, I think Tech is a little bit more built for the postseason than they used to be, just by nature of having Chandler Dennis in addition to Blake Nelman. That being said, the Duke series, of course, is worth touching on. The fact that we lost 9-1 in 5, 10-3 in a full 7, and then 3-1 means that we're probably going to have to get not only a good game, but also a bit of luck on our side, whether that's, the bats getting hot, Kauf and Trisha Awald and the rest can really put the ball out of the park or lace a double at any given time. But, we're going to have to keep runs off the board. And that's not something that we've really been good at against Duke yet, I guess. They're a young program too, and have only played them a handful of times.
Also 3 years old, by the way.
Really? I thought they were here.
What's up with the Carolinas just adding softball in 2019?
Title IX, probably.
That'll do. Yeah.
Well, Clemson's much quicker to give a sport a chop than add a sport. So really, this is remarkable that they didn't just incinerate a track or swim program, but I guess they're almost out of those.
They did attempt that, to be fair. They did attempt to incinerate men's track during the pandemic. So they got sued out of it.
Jack, one of this
Dang.
podcast's token issues is the fact that the Clemson swim team got absolutely royally screwed by the Clemson athletic department. And
I went to the ACC meet and I noticed, why the hell aren't they here? It didn't occur to me that they just didn't have a team at all.
Miami too.
Why. Yeah, I didn't know Miami wasn't there, and I think Pitt wasn't there. I don't remember.
So Miami's really weird because they usually beat a lot of schools at NCAAs, despite having, they have their women's team, but their men are only divers, but they're so good at diving that they're like a top 30, top 25 program at NCAAs year in, year out. So weird ACC omissions in terms of sports. Obviously Syracuse baseball, Wake Forest
soccer,
softball, Tech women's soccer. Everybody's got football and basketball, but it's
unfortunately.
And then the other caveat that we do want to note for those listening, the ACC softball tournament is in Pittsburgh. It does start the middle of the week, and only 10 teams will be there. So despite there being 13 teams?
I think there's a full 14 now.
No, because Miami doesn't have a team and Wake doesn't, but
I'm not going to go count it. It's fine. It's 13. I'm not going to go count it. I'm way too lazy. However, I do want to hit you with this.
Yeah.
When we were talking earlier this week about some prognoses, if you will, as Tech heads towards the postseason for the first time in about a decade. How do they improve their seed in this tournament? What do they need, to you, Mr. Bracketologist, to get from, I think you had them as a 3 or a top or like a low 2, high 3 the last time we talked about this. What do they need to do to improve their overall seed and get in that mid 2, high 2 range?
Is it too much of a snarky answer to say go back in time and beat Clemson a couple of times? Because really, that would be the best way to do it, honestly.
Okay. In the context of the ACC tournament.
Yeah. So in the context of the ACC tournament, obviously you want to win that first round game, but Duke, as of right now in the old Jake rankings, is my number 8 team in terms of the tournament prognosis. That would put them as a potential super regional host, and beating a top 10 team is always nice. Tech currently is the number 22 team in my rankings. I have them headed towards Tennessee, who is the 11th regional host. So, a lot of that play in the top 25 type range comes with beating teams above your station and winning the games you're supposed to. NC State's definitely one we're supposed to. Duke is definitely one that would get us some props. And then with the ACC being what it is this year, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. You got Virginia Tech, you got Florida State, you got Duke, who we already mentioned. I'm sure that there's somebody else above us Clemson and Notre Dame. You're going to run into one of those teams past Duke. And if you're not, it's because somebody else is really hot and playing really well, whether that's, a Louisville or a Virginia or someone like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So what we're feeling is they'll get past NC State, and then we'll sort of see. We'll feel our way through the Duke game.
Yeah, that's fair.
The expectation here is to win at least one game, is what we're saying.
Win one, be competitive in the second, and that'll put you in the conversation for maybe taking a win against Duke, which would be nice.
Speaking of teams that did not beat Duke in a series, let's move on to the men's side of the stickball sports. The baseball team got swept at Clemson this weekend. They allowed a grand total of 35 runs in 3 losses. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I know it depresses all 3 of us. Give me one sentence on what you think the prognosis is for this team heading into the final, 2-ish weeks of the season. Jack, you go first.
I used to play one sense, throw strikes a lot, consistently.
Okay. I will also allow you the other sentence that you started before I interrupted.
Oh, that I was qualifying that I played ball in the past, and that was my cardinal rule.
Oh,
yeah.
Throw strikes.
Yeah.
Throw strikes. No, nothing else. Throw strikes. Even when hitting. Throw strikes. Hit strikes. That's technically also
strikes.
Be in the strike zone somehow.
Not chasing. That's always good. No, yeah. Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway I've had from the past week isn't even a go forward thing. It's why did we extend these guys? But
yeah, that's not one sentence. However, I will let you keep it. I think that's another news item we should mention. Danny Hall, James Ramsey, and Danny Burrell have been extended until 2025. So that is 3 more seasons. I think there's validity to those extensions from a certain point of view, right? They have been dominating recruiting rankings. They have brought in a lot of really good talent. They have the backing of, major players in the tech ecosystem, where you're talking about a Mark Teixeira, Charlie Blackman, that sort of thing. So those kinds of players have rated those guys really highly and really like what they're doing. I think they've put together recently pretty good seasons together, right? I mean, like a second place finish in a regional, taking Vandy, who ended up being College World Series runner-up last year, to extra innings in the regional final. That's nothing to sniff at. Hosting being the number 3 national seed in 19 and hosting a regional, that's nothing to sniff at either. I think the sort of folly with the extension comes from, okay, well, the pitching has not improved over the 3 years of Burrell, and even with the pitching lab. The team hasn't.
You can't even credit Burrell with the pitching that got us to 2019.
Right. But I'm saying that the Hall and the Ramsey part of the staff, at least, you can give them the extension on the weight of that, right?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Danny Hall's the winningest coach in Tech baseball history. He's still been winning games. I think the problem is obviously the pitching. It is very, very, very obviously the pitching. I have questions with the lineup and how those are constructed, but I mean, James Ramsey's doing his job. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Yeah.
And I think the point that we've come across, and Jack, I'll let you get a word in here, but the point that we've hit on multiple times is like, there are questions with the process. Like, we have a bunch of questions about the process, what's going on week in and week out in the pitching lab. But everything else program-wide is kind of fine, right? Kind of fine, right? Yeah. And if you're grading on a scale sort of and evaluating them on the balance of that, like, okay, there's a bunch of these good things, but there's also this one massive negative thing. Is that worth an extension? And the decision was made by leadership to say yes.
I mean, they did. Yeah, they win a lot of games. And you kind of wonder what the momentum from 19, when we were doing really well, into like a normal 20 would have been, and where how that changes where we are now. And if that, I don't know how much that changes the pitching, but it could be something. But yeah, it's so fun to watch. Yeah, we have who was it? Joey Bart what quickly became the Giants starter for a hot second there. And then Parada's going to be a top 10 whip pick, something like that, at least
5.
5, yeah, something
at worst 5.
Yeah, it's insane what he's doing. How long has the pitching lab been around? Because I heard about this. Is this like, I knew he built something for baseball.
2 years.
Was that the 2 years? Okay, so we're 2 years.
I think it's 2 years. It was operational at least for this off season, or this past off season. So it's definitely been a thing because they had to finish the whole Champions Hall renovation and everything with that. Okay, so it's all underneath there. But
I gotta find a way to go see this thing, because I wonder. I mainly pitched growing up, and so I just wonder, like, how is it changing the mindsets of these guys coming out of high school into like using this kind of tech, and just does it put them in a weird space? Because whenever I tried to shift my mechanics or just shift how I was thinking on the mound, I just went south immediately. Pitching's about timing, or pitching's about messing up the hitter's timing, but you've got to have your own timing, your own. Like, Roy Halladay had to quit baseball early because it was so goddamn hard he was basically running a computer in his head at overdrive just to keep pace with himself.
Yeah. I mean, I think pitching this is going to be a very tenuous metaphor, or simile, but please bear with me. Pitching is like kicking footballs, where it's like everyone is a head case. Like you got to be in the zone all the time to pitch very well. All right, Jake, I can see your brain working on this one.
I'm trying to figure out how many sports end people we've called head cases in the last like 3 months. Because
I'm saying is a head case is probably too negative of a connotation, but you get what I mean.
You got to be neurotic.
Player,
you have to be neurotic.
Yeah, like divers. I think we commented that about platform diving. Head case. No, sorry, not to completely derail.
Belabor the point, if you will.
Yeah.
In terms of like just the, I don't know, like this is a team that's had success. It's a coaching staff that's had success. All that's correct. And when you think about it, we're coming off of a week before this where we just took a series from a top 10 team. Like
we did, yeah.
It's been a very honestly, neurotic's a great way to describe the year too, right?
Up and down.
It's one with full of contradictions and nothing about it. Talking about it, I'm sure going through it as a very talented team, as all those gents are, hasn't been probably easy for them as well. It's been a season that defines easy explanation and expectation.
Yeah. Just to wrap up the baseball segment, they are playing a midweek game versus Georgia Southern at home this week. They lost at Georgia Southern earlier this season, but as we talked about last week, a bunch of their in-state schedule has become very, very competitive this year, and that's really good to see overall. They'll have Akron and Kent State next week. I think that's 2 weeks from now, on the road, and then they'll wrap up the ACC slate at Pitt on the 19th through the 21st. Jake, you got the last word.
So much for the Danny Hall retirement tour.
Yeah, that speculation was rash, it seems.
So we'll eat some crow on that, because we definitely bought into that line of thinking. But
a lot of people did. A lot of people eating crow, to be fair.
Yeah.
Womp. Let's touch on golf really quick. We talked about their ACC tournament second place finish last week. The NCAA regional slate was announced this past week. They will be in Columbus, Ohio, starting on next Monday, actually. So we'll give a full preview then. Bottom line, just as a high level thing to think about, they just have to finish top 5 to advance to the NCAA championship final out of this regional. The main teams to look at are your top 4 seeds here of Oklahoma State, who's the number 2 national, Georgia Tech, obviously the number 11 national, Arkansas, who's the number 14, and Clemson at the 23. Those are your top 4 seeds in the Columbus, Ohio regional hosted by Ohio State. Ohio State is the 6th in this region. Any quick thoughts on that? Jake, you first.
Yeah, I do. I've been saving this one up all week since I saw this got announced. I don't know how often Georgia Tech goes to Columbus for anything. I can't remember of it recently. Like maybe we went up there for a tennis regional or something like that. I don't know. Point is, the last time I can remember any team going up there in particular is my beloved Georgia Tech Swim Club winning the 2019 national championship up there. So roll your eyes harder and tell me that we don't win trophies in Columbus, Ohio. We're undefeated for all I care about. Put money on it. They're in the bank. These guys are great. I mean, obviously they're great already.
Good God, you've been thinking about this specific anecdote for a week?
I've been waiting for this, Akshay, for this specific content that you crave.
Christ. Before we go to Jack real quick, I want to name the other teams that are in here. East Tennessee State is the 5. Ohio State again is the 6. Duke 7. Northwestern 8. Florida Gulf Coast 9. San Francisco 10. Kentucky 11. Wright State 12. And 13 is Southern Illinois. Jack, you got the last word here.
Can confirm San Francisco is a real college. Beyond that, I just know we're good at golf for the most part. I never got the chance to interact with any of our golfers while I was a student, so I don't have any insider information or any roundabout way to say something that's intelligent on this. Just putt well, please. Don't miss the fairway.
Yeah, they've been practicing out at the Noonan behind the place that I'll live for another 5 days. So hopefully all that pays off. They've been out there a lot though.
Bring out your binoculars.
Yeah, that appears to be Ben Reuter chipping.
I will say this, I don't know a lot about golf, but they did have a really good showing, really competitive showing at the ACC championship final. And just a really good weekend there.
The technique has some coverage. I know we've written about them. I didn't write about them, but we wrote about them.
So, all right. So our summer project as a podcast is to go out and golf and like steal one of the golf players and say, all right, 4 hours, 18 holes, teach us about your ways.
Give us everything. Yes. That's a great
It's a walk 18 and interview.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That totally won't backfire.
You know, just go to that source. No, it'll be fine.
We got to bring him to Top Golf.
Yeah, that'll work.
Me living right next to golf places. I used to live right across the street from Top Golf too. For those of you that needed to know that.
Great.
Don't try and find my new apartment. It's not near a golf course.
Let's head over to Griffin Track. The Georgia Tech track team was off this past week, but they do have their ACC championships coming up later this coming week. Jake, what can you tell us about what to expect?
Yeah, so we'll talk about graduation at a higher level in a bit, but in terms of things that you absolutely must pay attention to now is, and you know, I say this knowing full well the weight of what I'm going to say. You only have 2 meets left to watch the greatest to ever do it for Georgia Tech in not one, but 2 different sports. Nicole Fegans has 2 meets left. And whether that's breaking a record, because it seems like she does that every week, or, you know, winning an event or becoming an all-ACC, all-American, whatever, you got ACCs and then you got the NCAA process to watch her. So by and large, that needs to be what you're looking at in the coming week. Obviously, we've talked about it in the past. Georgia Tech doesn't have a ton of depth. It's never been something we particularly point to on the track. And it's not something that you should not go into this week expecting an ACC championship. If you do, I'm sorry. Like, you're just not going to have fun. Go watch, Olivia Moore pole vaulting. Our high jump on the men's and women's side and long jump has been really good this year. And then our distance running been really solid. So, and we've got good hurdles and sprinters. It's just not a ton of depth. Same problem we had for years in swimming. Don't go in with unrealistic expectations. Go in, watch them run, and especially the cream is going to rise to that top.
I also think this will be on ACC Network Extra. It should. I didn't double check that, but I would be surprised if it wasn't. And like, it's kind of fun when there's a track meet on during the day, during the work day. It's like nice background noise at the very least.
Hopefully you guys don't think I just kind of like sandbagged this whole team, but because I'm trying to be like the positive, but also realist vision.
The depth is coming.
They're sneaky. They're sneaky sport teams. I mean, that sneaky team sports, not sport teams. They're all sport teams. Yeah, you need. They're just big old bullpens in different sports. Honestly, I'm sorry, actually.
No, but my point is that, and I think Jake, you just didn't get to saying this. The depth is developing, and I think we've seen that over the last couple of meets. And we took a look at I think the Penn relays and then the Georgia Tech invite finishes. There were a bunch of underclassmen that were just coming through the system and placing in those top 30 and top 40 spots. So it's a bit of a like track is a little bit weird. We talked about it last week with Penn relays involving like pro athletes and like older runners that are from different track clubs and what have you, so that your final results can get a little jumbled. And then also you have the added complexity of split squad weekends too, right? Where you're sending a bunch of runners over to Penn and then you're sending a bunch of runners over to the Torrey Lawrence. And, you know, it's hard to make direct comparisons sometimes, but suffice to say the depth is coming. It's just a matter of when it, and presents itself and announces itself on the collegiate stage.
Yeah, I know we kind of, and we acknowledge this as a podcast, we tie back into things we know a lot, whether that's Atlanta United or swimming or, talking about baseball or
I'm excited to see where you're going with this, by the way.
You mentioned the depth coming up. The one thing that I think needs a lot of payoff, or I just really hope for their own sakes happens, is that it lines up with experienced seniors already being there and things of that nature. Like we saw Kaya Pamputis and Christian Ferraro and Kyle Barone get a 5th year. At the same time, we got a bunch of young Turks, literally young Turks. Haha, yes. Very funny references.
Memes, yes.
And they spit out a wire to wire top 25 season. I think that's the expectation you kind of got to have on the track too.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, you got anything on this one before we move on?
I did get to actually interview Nicole Fegans about a month and a half ago for one of our issues at the Technique, and she had just mentioned. I think the big thing for her, based on what we talked about, was just that she's way more used to this just the postseason schedule and just how much longer it goes, and how it just you just have to stretch out your legs for a longer amount of time. I think she likes indoor a little bit better, and especially in indoor track versus outdoor track, but also just in track versus cross country as a whole. This just does her feel a little bit better. I watched one of her races at Tech during that last weekend they were here. I mean, she looked really good. She was pacing, I think it was the 5K. Yeah, she paced really well I think she broke the school record by 2 seconds on that one. And it didn't necessarily look like she was really reaching for it. Well, in a way, I mean, she got second, so she didn't win. But just the idea that year over year, she's just gotten a lot better and is as ready as she's ever been to do these kind of beats and stretch into ACCs and longer. That at least tells me, okay, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect her to keep breaking these records as we go on, because she has taken a lot of time between meets. She does just keep getting faster. She did graduate. She was in the same graduation ceremony as me, which is cool. But yeah, I think in general, being hopeful about the top of our track team is a really cool fact that we have, and hopefully, swim, it turns into somewhat sustained success, maybe in 3 years when everyone's got more of their legs under them. Because Nicole's improved a ton in the last 3 years, and so who knows what anyone else could do on this team.
Yeah, and I think this is a program where you see people come in and improve a lot and get better. It's just a matter of, hitting on a couple at once, or, a couple people coming up at the same time. We've had Coach Hinsdale and Coach Drosky in the programs almost literally forever now. They're two of the longest tenured people in the athletics building. And, and it says the power of coaching that they're able to, every once in a while that Tech cross country or track team is going to compete for an ACC title or an NCAA berth. And we saw that 2 years in a row in cross country. That hadn't happened in years. And, I think it's interesting because cross country, obviously small roster, you need to break right a few times and get really right. But with track, you need this amazing depth. So really trying to figure out how that balances to, create that rising tide is going to be interesting moving forward, especially for a program that from Janine Williams, Nahom Solomon, Nicole Fegans, I could just keep naming off. We've had all these exemplary runners and field athletes over Olivia Moore, who just graduated this weekend as well. All these exemplary athletes, even in the 5-6 years that the three of us have been in the mix, watching and paying attention. But that's what they're there for, right? They've got a lot of great star powers. So if you're looking at one thing this weekend, like we said, I think that's what you got to kind of hang that hat on.
Absolutely. Let's double back to something that happened this past week. The women's tennis NCAA team championships. Tech was in the Auburn regional, paired up with Memphis for its first match, which they dominated 4-1 over Memphis. They took the doubles point and won 3 singles on their way to a second round matchup with Auburn which went the distance, but Tech fell 3-4. Jake, do you have an introductory thought on Tech's performance in this regional?
Honestly, it's back to form, right? It's a team that needed to reload a little bit, and the fact that they played solid enough to get their bid and play through to the second round and really be into the conversation for a Sweet 16 late was about as well as you can expect from a team that's really a top, like, fringy top 25 to top 40 team this year to finish in that round of 32. There's no shame in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we talked about it. You mentioned a thing that we talked about all season is that they have been rebuilding. They lost two of their best players ever over the break, and now you're figuring out this entire season with lineup construction and stacking various doubles pairings and mixing up your doubles rotations. Like how this team has come together has been really interesting, and how it's grown as well over the last couple of months has been really interesting as well. And I think this is kind of like, I feel fine with this, right? Like, this is not like a disappointment to me. Like, it's disappointing that they didn't advance to the Sweet 16, but it's fine that they took Auburn to the distance. I don't know. I'm trying to make this sound positive, put a positive spin on it.
Yeah, and I think no one's going to disagree with that. I think it really reflects what at least I was trying to say in terms of, like, you know what? It sucks that they didn't go on. They were up 3-1. I don't know if we mentioned that yet. They were up 3-1, but we're down on two of the three other courts, and I believe tied on the third when that third point was netted, and that's where their score stayed. So, obviously disappointing not to in that, like, lower level. But I think the biggest thing that kind of resonated with me, just kind of looking out at the weekend and results. For the listeners who don't know, we did allude to losing two very important pieces. Kenny Jones, who was back for a fifth year last year, and Vicky Flores, who was finished up her senior year, got her degree, and then went out to Pepperdine for her graduate degree. And that's something that's going to be really interesting with COVID and narratives around that as well. And you see these things like, oh, Bubba Parham's transferring, or Jordan Yates is transferring, or Kayla Kaiser. These important players for Tech on different teams. Andy Archer going out to Hawaii to borrow one from last year.
And also bleaching the hell out of his hair, by the way. I did catch a couple of Hawaii games earlier this year.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean? It's people using that weird fifth year of eligibility to go get that degree that they really can't get at Tech. If you're getting a med type degree or a law type degree, I'm pretty sure that's what Vicky Flores went out to get.
I think we talked about it. We talked law.
Pepperdine.
Basketball just lost Sarah Bates this week too.
Yeah, same thing. Like they came, they got their degree. It's not like they're saying, "Hey, I'm out." Like they got their degree. This is Georgia Tech.
Yeah, they did their thing. They did their time.
Yeah, exactly. And but between us, we've all got Tech degrees. We left when we were done with them. I can't besmirch it. Well, I didn't really. I stayed for another one, but we all left eventually. We were finished with what we signed up.
This podcast currently averages 1.3 Tech degrees per person.
Yeah. No, so I don't besmirch any of it, but this team with Victoria Flores, then a round of 32 exit would be disappointing, but you essentially lost court one and two in one swoop, and then played your way back to the second round, almost to the Sweet 16 of an NCAA. I think that's a pretty good bounce back, and it's the same type of killer reload like we've seen on the golf course, and we've given them so much props for that, so we might as well give them somewhat of a shout out too for women's tennis. I don't know if we've done that quite as clearly as we could have this year.
Yeah. Just a quick scheduling note for women's tennis. They have the singles and doubles championships coming up at Illinois in, 3 weeks? 3 weeks. Carol Lee and Kate Sharabura will be there. Jack, do you have any parting thoughts on women's tennis performance at the NCAA team championships?
No. I did not watch any of this. Barely.
I was really hoping you were
going to
bring up the name of the tennis complex at Illinois, but we can sidestep the joke on that one.
Oh, yes, I'm not a Star Trek guy. I'm sorry.
Boo! It's the Con Outdoor Tennis Complex, by the way.
I've never seen a Star Trek, so
both of you need to learn yourself some memes. You don't need to know
most. I've watched most of the movies. I did no shows. I watched that. At least I've watched that scene. I remember watching that scene.
Okay. Fine. That is acceptable, Jake. We're going to have a conversation after this. Moving on to the men's side of Ken Byers Tennis Complex. They were off. They did not make the NCAA team competition, but they will be in the singles and doubles championships. Andres Martin and Mr. McDaniel will be participating. What do you make of this draw for them, Mr. Grant?
I think that they are, between Andres on the single side and Andres and Marcus on the double side, they are about as good as any team in the country, any singles pairing, any doubles, any singles person, any doubles pairing in the country. We saw it in the fall. They swept through the ITA Southeastern Regionals, went on to play in San Diego in their big nationals there, and I think that really fits with the same expectations here, right? They peaked at top 3 in the country, maybe top 2. I think it was top 3 in terms of doubles. Andres has been top 10 in singles all year. That should mean that they're playing late into the weekend. They're not people that faltered a lot during the regular season. They're obviously super reliable, and I think that expectation for them is being in the mix for that round of 16, round of 8 type finish, and they're definitely capable of it. That being said, all of this is gravy, right? That's tennis. We get so much postseason tennis that it's almost hard to determine where the expectation is, because obviously you want to win it all, but with the women, we already just declared their season a success. Is Lee and Cher Brura between singles and doubles, because they did get entries in both, playing it at UIUC for their type draws. Is that gonna make that more of a success? Is it just gravy? I don't know. That's where I struggled to draw the line in terms of expectations, because we said that this men's tennis team was a team that could and should be in the mix to go to a regional. So, before the season, they obviously had a lot of tough 4-3 losses scattered throughout the year. I got way off topic there, so somebody reel me back in. I think
Andres Martin gonna do good things.
Yeah, they could.
Who's your reel back in?
Yeah, somebody else talk.
They're a good doubles pairing. I think the expectation. I don't really have expectations for them, right? I think you mentioned it when you were talking about the team season as a whole. They had a bunch of 4-3 losses, but Martin and McDaniel were really good doubles pairing, and both of those players have been, Tech's 1-2 or like 1-2-3 mainstays for a while. So, I don't really have any expectations. We'll just sort of feel our way through this and see how they do. Jack, you got anything on this one?
I think it'd just be cool, just to have like a sneak, like these guys outside of Fegans are like kind of like the sneaky best case scenario for any of the last of the Tech sports to like really make a splash in any of the last couple of sports we have to go before the 2022-23 seasons go on. So I think it, especially like when we were so close in volleyball and just had to run into Louisville again, and then women's basketball just got cold at the wrong time. And certainly looked like a Sweet 16 team, at least for most of the year. I think just this little random, like not random, but it's like, oh, hold on a second, Andres Martin might be bringing us some silverware or something at least. I mean, it's an outside shot, but it's like, okay, I think in a year where Tech Athletics on the non-rev side has done on average spectacularly, to get something to show for it, if it's him, I'd love it so much.
And that's exactly, I think, pinpointing why golf coming up so heartbreakingly short in the ACC championship was doubly frustrating, because like, one, they win it all the time and it's just nice for them to keep doing that, but two, like for a year that, like, at least for us as people who are relatively pretty clued into non-rev sports go, like, we understand that, like, an Elite Eight season for volleyball, that was up there with one of their best. If not their best season of all time, it's their second best. You know, women's basketball, best win of all time over UConn. That's pretty darn good. Golf, obviously, still in the mix for, you know, a couple more trophies. Track, individual performance, talked about. Vegans, swimming, the men were top 25, top 20, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. Like, top to bottom, things are going really. Softball just had their best regular season in a decade. More, you know, like, it's
building. It's all just collectively going from the ground up, and we're getting some continuity. I mean, swimming's got. I mean, I talked to those senior guys, and, like, they mentioned in swimming, and, like, they mentioned over and over, like, we've got it set in place. This program's ready to go. Kyle Pamputis, just, that's all he would talk about. It's like, we got the freshmen, they're here. Christian was like, we've got the guys. We're glad we were able to see them go through this. Most of these teams have that now too. So, please win trophies. We want trophies.
Silverware is nice.
Yeah, and
goldware is better.
The kind of like to not tie a boat. You got
dovetail.
In terms of the thing that I keep thinking about is, how far do they have to go to be like, title anyways? This season's a success. Like, what does that look like in terms of that expectation for them being like, okay, Anders Martin, Marcus McDaniel, they went really far. Obviously, they already went really far in the fall. But, like, what does that look like to say, like, you know, Kenny Thorne, whoever, recruiting, like, all that stuff is whatever. This year, they met expectation. What do they have to do to hit that?
Right. Yeah.
Wait, that was an actual question. That wasn't a rhetorical question.
No, it was a legitimate question. What should our expectation?
I think if they make the Sweet 16, it's a success. What's the word I'm looking for?
Unmitigated.
Unmitigated is negative, but it's like an unconstrained success. Like, no caveats. It is a success for the team. I think if they fall in the round of 32, that's sort of where I feel that's fine. I'm not gonna feel a specific way about it. That's for me, at least.
You just want them to go in and mix it up, is what you're saying.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Right. Jack, anything different from you?
I like that idea. I think that's a safe bet. I think it's a good way to emotionally hedge. It's a great emotional hedging.
I love emotional hedging. Let me tell you,
this podcast exists to emotionally hedge.
Yes.
That's why I have volleyball tickets. In fact, you know, emotionally hedging football. Just kidding.
I've been an Atlanta sports fan too long to not emotionally hedge on.
It's just too easy. It's too easy.
There was literally a flag, like, banner in my uncle's house growing up that said, "Wait till next year." My whole existence as a Chicago Cubs fan was emotional hedging. Don't even worry about this. Wait till next year. It's only been a week. No, wait till next year. Wait till next year. Sorry. Anyway.
Well, for some of us, the next year is a new frontier after graduation. Congrats to Jack for graduating yesterday. We're going to wrap up here. Anything else as we talked about a lot today. Anything else to wrap up?
Yeah. I have a couple notes on graduation. I've been, you know, if you've read Yellow Jacket Roundup already, if not, well, you should go read it anyways, but I'll kind of summarize what I said there. Thinking about graduation is always really interesting to me. It's a singular point that I think ties our sports together in ways that we don't really see cross programs, other than, you know, I guess cross country and track overlap, or, you know, Mike DeVoe ran with the track team. Like, they don't get a lot of interface across a variety of different sports, but on one day you get to be thinking about, wow, like, there goes Jordan Yates, there goes Nicole Fegans, there goes Kyle Pamputis crossing the stage in a way that really doesn't come together a lot. And I do want to rattle off just in terms of some of, I guess, the things that they all kind of contributed to while they were at Tech. obviously, probably first and foremost in the collective conscious is the ACC Championship men's basketball team. Mike DeVoe, Khalid Moore, Bubba Parham, Jordan Usher, Loda Mylotin and Sarah Bates contributed to a real renaissance in women's basketball. This was a program that I think it would not be a stretch to say in the winter of 2019 was kind of left for dead due to transfers and scandals. And, now they're coached by one of the most beloved people ever to wear white and gold with, some of the most impressive wins and quality people, just a part of the program, staff, players, otherwise. The two of them, we could name a number of the softball players, but it's worth calling out that Bailey Zeitler's starting count in 4 years is 100 and counting. That speaks to the ubiquity of softball or spring too, but softball even more so, just because they play so many games. It's a name that you hear up and down the list. Obviously would not be worth talking about without talking about Michaela Dowd, Kaiser, Maddie Tippett, names that I think could be the three, if not most spoken volleyball names on this podcast. They're up there with Bremby and Bergman to consist of our top 5. Just tremendous to watch that team over the last 3 years. And they were foundational members of that arc from, scrappy underdog to unstoppable behemoth of volleyball annihilation. Like, it was an expectation to win last year. And that's not something I could say about the teams from, 2017, 2018. They came a long way. They really did. And then just that last point, we've kind of hit on this a couple times. It's not often that you have a weekend where you can say the greatest to ever compete for one tech sport or even 2 tech sports cross the stage, like on the same time. It is decidedly even more improbable to see the 2 greatest men's swimmers, Kaya Paputis, Christian Ferraro, the best women's diver, that's Cami Hidalgo, the best long distance runner in track and cross country athlete, Nicole Fegans, and then a name that we haven't even discussed yet on this podcast, Mark Teixeira, finally getting his degree, who could be the best baseball player of all time.
I made sure to get a picture.
Sports. The GOAT
did say
5 tech sports graduated.
I did say Mark Teixeira when we were talking about baseball and the extension.
Okay.
Give me some credit.
Fine.
But I will throw you the bone for the graduation bit.
If we're talking about things I've thought about all week, that's really the one. Not some silly joke about club swimming, but you got to savor it. They're only here for 4, sometimes 5 years, and that's a lot of great memories walking out the door right there between hard court, between volleyball, softball, baseball. I mean, I don't remember Mark Teixeira playing for Tech. I don't think any of us.
I think Mark Teixeira. Wait, when did Mark Teixeira go to the pros? Now I have to.
Teixeira would have played in the early 2000s. He got drafted in 05 or 06. I was so. I was so glad he was in my ceremony because I was like, I have to beat this guy because I went to his first game as a Brave back in 2000, whatever that was, and he hit a home run, right-handed. He's a switch hitter. I forgot who we even played or who was pitching in that game, but no, I made sure to tell him, like, dude, I was there. It was great. It was cool to meet. It's so good to meet him. You look at the size of his hands, you're like, yeah, we understand why he hit so many home runs. That man's just massive. Still right now.
He played the Astros, by the way, in that debut on the 1st of August in 07.
Astros? Okay, gotcha.
That's poetic in a bunch of ways, isn't it?
Yeah. He was the first Brave I ever met.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
No, damn it, I lied. Sorry, second. Tom Glavine was the first.
I will say that.
How dare you lie on our podcast?
I caught myself. I've been lying on other text threads though, unintentionally though.
Just never told a joke on this podcast.
Did not blow its credibility with the Tony Elliott article. No. It was that. That's what did it. Right.
We're not going to reopen that bundle of cans of worms. I was going to make a joke about how Teixeira had entered the pros before Jake was born, but it looks like that Teixeira was drafted in 01. So that joke would not have flown, although it is fairly close.
98. I don't know what Akshay, you're 97 or are you 98?
97.
Okay.
Jack? Fairly close.
We're all 90s. I'm 99, so we're all pre-2000.
Even closer. Fantastic. I feel older every year. Anything else before we pack it in for the day?
Oh, one last thing. We did have a Buzz graduate. I was at the morning ceremony because Josie was
we did. Yeah.
Landon's a great guy. He's been behind the mask for a really long time, and he really cares a lot about that craft. So, great to see them get their moment in the sun. So
absolutely. It's also very fun to watch them jump up into a different Buzz's arms and get firemen carried across the stage. It's very funny.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Okay, cool. Well, that is it for us for this week. We will see you all next week, hopefully with some golf. Well, I guess we'll have a golf preview to talk about and maybe some happier baseball results. Who knows?
Hopefully there's some wins from Akron and Kent State.
That'd be nice.
Hopefully, he says. We'll talk to you next week.